Hey Sparks, I'm Hatchback with another episode of Sparkplug TV. Oh God, enough with the dad jokes. Welcome back to another video, Sparks. My name is Chris and I do car reviews for quite literally everybody, not just car enthusiasts. Please do me the biggest favor ever and like this video, comment something down below, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Today, I've got something that actually gave me buyer's remorse for my Hyundai Elantra. It's the 2022 Honda Civic Sport Hatchback. I got this Civic hatchback from Johnson Lexus of Raleigh. Johnson Lexus of Raleigh brings in thousands of local trade-ins every year as the largest volume luxury brand dealership in North Carolina. They always have a large selection of different makes and models, coupled with unbeatable world service. Thanks again, Johnson Lexus. So Honda Civics have been a mainstay in my life for many, many years. My great Aunt Carol's last car was a third generation 1985 Honda Civic hatchback with the motorized seatbelt and the modernized interior. Then, my best friend in high school had an 8th generation coupe that I always thought was so cute and super zippy. I had another friend in college that had a 2014 9th generation Civic with the passenger side camera and the touchscreen buttons that everybody hated. Like I said, these things have been in my life for the longest time, so I wasn't kidding when I said I had buyer's remorse about my Elantra. This fully redesigned 2022 Honda Civic hatchback kicks complete and total ass by proudly evoking the Civic badge in the most correct manner possible. So there are 4 trim levels total, but each trim comes in a hatchback version. The hatchback version is slightly more expensive for each trim, but the base LX sedan starts out at an incredibly frugal $23,000, while the most expensive model, the Sport Touring hatchback, sits at around $31,000. Still incredibly reasonable considering the features you get for that price. In terms of pricing, this Sport hatchback sits towards the middle of the pricing model of around $25,000. In terms of powertrains, Honda really said if it ain't broke, don't fix it, because consumers are still being offered the 2.0-liter inline-4 as well as the turbocharged 1.5-liter inline-4. The Sport comes with the naturally aspirated 2.0-liter inline-4 that outputs 158 horsepower and 138 pound-feet of torque. All Civics are offered with a front-wheel drive drivetrain, but only the hatchbacks are offered with a 6-speed manual transmission. This one, however, has the standard CVT transmission. I wish it was offered with more variations of transmissions, but I'll get into this CVT later. Finally, the Civic Sport hatchback gets up to 60 miles an hour in about 7.5 seconds and has a top speed of 140 miles per hour. If you want the unbridled speed and performance, you'll have to wait for the 2023 Civic Type R, girl. Sorry. You know, I really gotta hand it to Honda. They did a fantastic job on this front end. Where the 10th generation looked way too scrunched up and had a lot going on, this generation looks clean, elegant, and simple. I don't know how an inanimate object can itself look uncomfortable, but last generation Civic definitely did. The front end, in a word, looks more discreet. You can see the front grille starts off with the newly famous hexagonal Civic shape that continued on the inside. The LED running lights are absolutely killer, and I love the way that they're angled on top of these LED headlights. The hood itself went through a reproportionizing by moving the A-pillars back nearly 2 inches to achieve a more German-engineered look, making the hood look flatter and longer. I'm also glad they stuck to the Civic styling with the grille, as it doesn't follow anybody's gargantuan grille style. Not to be redundant, but it's a classy understatement. So there's actually not a ton that you can say about the side. It's just about as understated and clean with the line work as the front end. The Sport does come standard with these 18-inch black alloy wheels, as well as these black side mirrors that match the two-tone styling. You can see that the back end slopes down into a proper hatchback-like stance instead of the flat-surfaced sedan. In terms of gas mileage, you are looking at about 30 miles per gallon in the city and 38 miles per gallon on the highway. The onboard computer right now says that I'm averaging about 27 miles per gallon. This may look like a light bar, but it's actually just the third brake light. When the lights come on, these brake lights only just extend right up into the middle and connect with the third light that's required in the US. That's a cheeky way, in my opinion, to have a light bar. I mean, nobody said it had to be lit all the time. It's lit! In terms of design, I'm very pleased with how they redesigned this hatchback's hiney. It tips its proverbial hat to both form and function without all of that cheesy plastic bits and spoilers in the previous generation. Ugh, that thing was awful. I'm telling you, an inanimate object that looked uncomfortable with itself, I don't know how, but it did. The streamlined look of this hatchback goes well with the understated front end. In terms of cargo space, it's pretty ample with 24.5 cubic feet, which is 1.75 times more than the sedan offers. Impressive. Okay, moving right along to the interior, I really love the redesigned interior of the Civic. I think it is the best part of the whole car. It's gotten rave reviews online, and I follow suit with those rave reviews because, first and foremost, the honeycomb air vents that extend all the way across the front is just, it's great. I mean, it gives it this kind of luxurious aspect, even though it's a standard car. It's nothing that you've seen before in a Civic. You know, Civic has always been very standard looking, but it's actually got some really great design cues now, especially with this honeycomb hexagonal air vent that pretty much hides the air vents. And then you've got these silver dials that kind of move the air vents and hides them very well. You know, the rest of the cabin in general gives this, not to be redundant, but gives this luxury kind of look to it. And I think the only thing that might not actually give luxury is this infotainment system, because the infotainment screen is only about 7 inches, as well as the gauge cluster. So I do kind of wish that the infotainment system was a little bit bigger in that sense. You can opt for the 9-inch one. It's big enough, I guess, because I don't know, just when you hook it up into the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, it's like, it's just so tiny. And there's not a whole lot of like options or anything like that. It's pretty basic and pretty standard, but I think people with this car are just looking for like Apple CarPlay. So there's 3 sound systems that the Civic comes with. There's a 4-speaker one, an 8-speaker one, and then you get the Bose premium sound system. So this one has the 8-speaker one, and it sounds really great. You know, in terms of materials, I mean, it's a standard car. I'm not expecting it to be above and beyond, you know, but I think that the seats are comfortable enough. I like the cloth seats. I like the way that they're styled with the, you know, it's kind of got that gray look as well as that black look kind of intertwined. The steering wheel is really well designed as well. I think that the last Civic generation had those like gloss black buttons that kind of felt really cheap, but these actually kind of feel more like a video game console controller. You know, they're matte black and they're good. It's got this like wheel right here on the left for the gauge cluster, and then the volume controls, and then the adaptive cruise control stuff. It's a really great integration of the buttons into the steering wheel. You know, the gauge cluster itself is giving very much a Honda Accord. It's got the half digital tachometer and then the half analog speedometer. You can opt for the 10-inch fully digital gauge cluster, but this one is good enough. You can customize the gauge cluster to whatever, to show whatever you fancy. I mean, for me, I really like to see the instant miles per gallon. When you do change the drive mode, however, it does make a cute little dingy noise. One thing I am a little dismayed about is the fact that you don't get the blind spot monitoring system until the upper trim levels, which is kind of weird considering the fact that you do get the adaptive cruise control, the lane follow, and the lane keep assist. Why not also offer the blind spot monitoring? I mean, that's just a similar safety feature to these. I don't know. It's a little weird that they didn't include that, but I think the biggest gripe for the last Civic as well was the lack of storage, and this one is ample with storage. I mean, there's a huge storage bin in the front. The center console is pretty deep for a compact car. The glove compartment's decent enough, but I mean, it's got ample storage. I mean, you can tell that they cut open this part right here to accommodate, and you know, all the controls are just kind of hanging on their own. Yeah, I mean, and I really like the way that the door handles look. I mean, it's a really well-designed interior. Yeah, there's really not much else you can say about it. I mean, good job, Honda, you know? Okay, let's take her out on the road. All right. So I just want to start with the fact that I am not the biggest fan of CVT transmissions. And I was being serious earlier when I said that I wished that there were different options, anything besides the CVT transmission. But all of those points aside, it's almost like you can't even really feel it. I forgot to mention the fact that it does have paddle shifters on the steering wheel. It does help aid, like, you know, when you're driving in sport mode, which I'll put it in now. So I'm in first gear. I'll go around this. And while the engine noise is like a little unrefined and it's like kind of loud, and it's not really that fast either, 7.5 seconds to get up to 60 is kind of slow. But those points aside, I mean, even though it's got kind of a slow engine but a good transmission, it's still a lot of fun to drive. It's got a low center of gravity because it's extremely low to the ground. You know, it's a smaller kind of car. I'm being redundant this whole video, but this interior is a really nice place to be. It's very comfortable. Yeah, I'm pretty confident around corners. I mean, it's very agile, it's very nimble. It just doesn't make any sense to me why they would call this a sport and not offer the bigger powertrain. Or maybe like a rear-wheel drive drivetrain. Let me try to beat this guy. it's just not that impressive with speed. And, you know, it's not meant to be. It's meant to be an everyday kind of car. This 2.0 liter would probably be great with a turbocharger. I think the only qualm that I have about, or something that I had to get used to, was how sensitive the brakes are in here. I think from a higher speed, kind of braking is easier, but at lower speeds, this thing requires less braking, but you're not really... Whoa! Okay. I wasn't even really... I was paying attention, but I forgot that that corner was coming up, and that was impressive. I mean, albeit the tires, you could hear the tires a little bit. It still wasn't that bad. But back to the braking. So, I mean, the braking is a little sensitive at slower speeds, and it's actually pretty useful at higher speeds, but it's definitely taken me a little bit of getting used to. Alright guys, now that the driving portion's over, you know what time it is. It's time for pros and cons. So, I gotta say, I am thoroughly impressed with the new 2022 Honda Civic hatchback. It is very well designed inside and out. Just the way that it looks, it's pretty impressive. It's a great entry-level car into the Honda brand. I think it's just a great entry-level car, period. Again, redundancy, but I should have waited for this and bought this instead of the Elantra, because this actually feels like a luxury car. It's so reasonably priced. I would go for the fully loaded touring model. In general, it's a very nice car. So to get into the pros and cons, so the pros, like I said earlier, redundancy. The exterior styling and the interior styling, A+. The interior styling with the honeycomb look on the vents, the materials are great. The way that they restyled the steering wheel is great. There's just the right amount of buttons. Another pro would be the cargo space. I mean, they really improved that. They really listened to the consumer and said, here's some more cargo bins, you greedy. But in general, yeah, great cargo space, great trunk space, great space, a decent amount of space in the back too. I mean, I'm surprised at that. Another pro would definitely be the highway driving. The highway driving is great. Another pro is the handling. The handling around corners is sound, it's secure, it's sleek, it's aggressive, and it's impressive. Another pro would be the mid-grade sound system. The mid-grade sound system sounds pretty great. And yeah, I think just the comfortability of the everyday driving is also really a pro. So the cons, there's a surprising amount of cons that I wasn't expecting. One of them being, and I didn't mention this in the driving portion, but the road noise is extreme. It's very loud. I think it's definitely louder than the Elantra was for me. I was surprised at how, because when I got on the highway, after I stopped recording, I was like, oh God, it's actually really loud in here. Another con would probably be the engine. It's just not fast. And I know that this is just an everyday driving car and it's probably fine for that, but when you're trying to get up and go, there's really not a whole lot of get up and go. I'm curious to know what the 180 horsepower turbocharged one does, but for this one, it was just a little lackluster. Another con is the lack of transmission options. I've already stated that, but I think that, albeit the CVT is a great transmission, I would just prefer a different style transmission, that's all. Maybe more options. Another con would be the standard infotainment screen. It is bare bones basic, baby. Alliteration. It's bare bones basic. It's, I don't know, maybe it's okay that it's that basic, but I'm just surprised at how tiny it is. I didn't expect it to be that small. Or maybe I did, because the base model Civic in the last generation, that screen was actually really small. So never mind. But it's still a con. Yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah, in general, I mean, like, great entry-level car, great redundancy. I'm being so redundant in this whole video. I think that's it. I think I'm done with this video. I'm, again, pleasantly surprised. I would definitely recommend this car. And I'm so glad that I finally got my hands on a Civic. I have been waiting to do this video. I'm a huge fan of these, and I definitely continue that. You know, I really love the Civics. So that's it for me, Sparks. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Thank you for constantly supporting my channel. I very much appreciate it, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Hey Sparks, thanks for watching today's video. If you want more Sparkplug TV content, click right here. Right here. You got two options. Choose one, or both.